I'd like to welcome everybody to this SDSMA Center for Physician Resources presentation on MACRA and understanding the quality practice improvement activities. This presentation is brought to you in partnership with Avera Health and the South Dakota Center for Advancement of Health Information Technology, or CHIT. This is the second of 4 programs that will be dedicated to understanding MACRA. Please, all lines will be kept open. If we do pick up some background noise, however, we'll go ahead and mute those. Be respectful to our presenter. But with that being said, we want to make sure that we provide you opportunities to ask questions. So we'll pause times throughout the presentation, or we'll be sure to open up the lines at the end so you can ask the questions you may have. And with that, I'm going to turn our presentation over to Mr. Dan Frederick of CHIT. He is the Executive Director of CHIT, and he is a Certified Information Systems Security Professional. Dan has more than 30 years of experience in information assurance and technical instruction. At this time, I'm going to ask Dan to further introduce himself and then lead us through our discussion. Take it away, Dan.
And welcome everybody to the second element of a 4-part series here, as Mark was saying. This is really kind of exciting to me to present to you guys because it's something a long time coming. We've heard about this in healthcare for a long time, this transition to pay for quality, and there are certain things that have been set in motion. I believe it's finally here. As Mark said, I'm the director of the Center for Advancement of Health IT here at Dakota State University, and one of our functions is in CMS's Transforming Clinical Practices Initiative. We are the South Dakota, North Dakota converters for the Compass Practice Transformation Network. So part of our mandate is to assist providers making the transition. So there's an education, part of it is in some direct technical assistance, some of it is in answering questions, number of activities that we can help provide. It's part of a massive effort by CMS. If we think about how CMS has rolled this out, and it isn't just since MACRA was passed in April of 2015, it really started with the High-Tech Act and even some before that. But the Tech Act really kicked it into motion with meaningful use, where we, through a period of time when we went from, in about 4-year period, we went from a 4% adoption of EHRs to nationally above 75%. In South Dakota, we're above 90%. So kudos to all of you. This has not been easy work. We understand that, but that meaningful use program is really just all preparatory work for the shift to quality. Because the old adage, of course, is if you can't measure it, you can't improve it. So all of this prior to now has been preparatory work, if you will. Now with the advancement of MACRA, which is, they're now from CMS, they're calling it the Quality Payment Program, or QPP. You'll probably hear me say that, and you'll hear other folks say that. The Quality Payment Program it does several things. One of the things it does is it repealed SGR, and most recognize that as a program that had fatal flaws in it, and it was only a matter of time before that went away and something had to be done. So it does repeal the SGR. It streamlines a lot of programs that you may already be participating in, PQRS, value-based modifier, meaningful use. Those all get rolled up into the QPP. So the major thing that it's trying to do, though, is trying to help people get into advanced payment models or alternative payment models. So think next-gen ACOs, EC Plus, and several other programs where providers share risk, but they all can share reward in those payment models. So CMS is positioning this clear as a fresh start. They have sunk a lot of money into it. Is that we're listening and help is available, and we have been fairly actually, with how they're trying to put this together. We were part of the Regional Extension Center program, and we're now part of Practice Transformation Initiatives, and we've seen CMS taking a different approach than they have with a lot of this stuff in the past. So, I do think this is a good opportunity for them to move forward as a fresh start. What we'll do tonight is we'll do a little bit of a refresher on the first presentation so that, that might have missed it, we'll get caught up a little bit. For those of you who did see it last time, you'll get sort of the truncated version of it, so you'll be able to be ready. And then we're going to spend the bulk of our time looking at the clinical practice improvement activities section. Was one of 4 sections of the actual MIPS, based incentive payment system. So we'll get to that a little bit deeper. But MIPS is the bucket that if you are not in an APM, you will be subject to MIPS. And there are some conditions there, and we'll talk through the conditions over the next few minutes. But initially, eligible clinicians is anybody who takes Medicare Part B and certain thresholds. So they are the folks that are going to be participating in years 1 and years 2 are DOs and MDs, DDSs and DDMs, podiatrists, optometrists, chiropractors, up to the point where they're paid for certain of their procedures. Also, physicians' assistants, nurse practitioners, and CAs, or anesthetists. Sorry, I didn't roll off my tongue very good. I apologize. Once we get out into years 3 and further, there's going to be several other care providers that are going to be eligible to participate in MIPS. So that's, you read those of the folks on the right. Keep in mind that they're going to do it in a phased rollout. So you'll see that they're doing other things in a phased rollout as well over the next few years. They're going to start out with the folks that need it the most, and that would be the physicians, the PAs, and the NPs. So there are several groups, and we talked a little bit about eligibility and those thresholds. This is a bit of a change. If you spent some time looking at the proposed rule that came out, the final rule did make some changes here, so this is a good spot to take a good hard look at this slide. First year Medicare Part B participants are not eligible or required to submit to MIPS, so that you can get your feet under you on several different ways of reporting and things like that through to CMS. So first year Medicare Part B participation, you are subject to MIPS. If you have a low patient volume, and this is the place where they made a real change from the proposed rule to the final rule. The new rule says in order to be eligible for MIPS, you have to be $1,000 per year and have 100 or more, 101 actually, Medicare patients. So if you fall under either of those categories, right? If you charge under $30,000 to Medicare Part B, or you have 100 or fewer Medicare patients, you're excluded from the MIPS program. The incentive and penalty side, you can still participate in the program if you don't technically have to, but you will not be eligible for incentives, and you will not be penalized if you don't miss the threshold. So one thing that, we're advising people, if you can make the move now would be a good time to make the move and get participating, even if you might not necessarily be mandated to do it or eligible to do it, because I think there are some things that we're seeing now. This is a startup program from CMS. So there are changes as the program program goes forward. And my suspicion is that there'll be a little more open to suggestion in these early years about what works and what doesn't. I guess that after we get 2, 3, 4 years down the line in the program, they're going to be pretty well set in the way that works, and they're going to continue to use that. So, you know, we'd love to see everybody participating in the program. We do recognize that there are some of you who may not be ready yet, and if you are one of those that don't feel like you're ready, or even if you do feel like you're ready, reach out to folks. I mean, reach out to Mark at the Medical Association, reach out to us here at Practice Transformation, reach out to the QIOs. You know, all of those are set and ready to provide you with some assistance to get ready for this. So there's also another group that's ineligible or not subject to MIPS, and those would be the folks that are currently participating in alternative payment activities or alternative payment models that are considered by CMS to be advanced. And there's not a lot of those programs out there. Like I said, CP Plus is one of them. Next Gen ACOs is another one. Certain of the shared savings programs, I think 2 and 3. The list is going to be put out and posted prior to 1/1 of 2017 of what would be considered the advanced APMs for the year 2017. So, for folks here, there are 3 groups. If new, if you fall under the patient thresholds, or if you're already in an advanced APM. When we look at line, I actually want to kind of look at this slide down here, if you will. If we look at the bottom of the slide first and see there's 2 reporting years before there's any adjustment year. So if you're familiar with the way PQRS rolled out, it's the same thing. Where the peer leads the performance year by 2 years. So in 2017, you'll do reporting, and then in 2019, the payment adjustments will happen. And in 2019, it's either a 4% increase or a 4% decrease, and then there's actually some bonus dollars that go on top of that. So that graduates over time. So by the time you're looking at performance year 2020 or year 2022, there's also 18% swing in your Medicare Part B payments. So as I understand it, when I talk with people around the state and in other places, most places are running on margins of 3.5%, 4%, something like that. And so if you have a significant Medicare population, an 18% hit on your Part B payments could make a difference. So, you know, I sort of want you to keep that in mind as you go forward. So now if we look at the top half of this timeline, 2017, which we're also calling a transition year, and so I'll explain what that means here in a couple of slides, but you can provide up to a full year of reporting in 2017, or you can do 90 days of reporting in 2017 and 2017 only. We're expecting that 90-day performance period to keep going after 2017 performance year. But even all data has to be submitted by March 31st of 2018. And so that you have until March 31st to actually submit the data, but you do not have into 2018 to begin the program. I think October 2nd is the last possible day you could start a 90-day reporting period and still fill the 90-day reporting requirements. We clearly recommend that you're doing it before then, waiting until the last minute. During 2018, that's a feedback year. That might be one thing to consider, even if you're not eligible for MIPS. If you participate in the program, you will get feedback. So anticipate participating in the program going forward, and I believe that more and more people are going to have to participate. then a good year to do performance checking in 2017, getting feedback in 2018, so that you're really familiar with how the project rolls out and how the payment adjustments are made and those kinds of things and what they're looking for. Recent feedback in 2018, maybe decide to do your first performance year in 2018 then. So, and once January 1st, 2019 rolls around, there will be payment adjustments based on your 2017 performance data. So, starting in 2019, when you submit a Medicare Part B, you'll be incentivized or penalized based on your performance in 2017. Stop there, Mark, and ask if there are any questions about the timeline.
All phone lines open, so you should be able to ask any questions you have at this time.
We'll move on. So look at this, right, is what I have to do in 2017 to start earning incentive payments. Every year they're going to do this, and every year in the November-December time frame, they're going to release a set of numbers, and they've already released them now for performance year 2017. And those numbers really indicate a couple of different things. You see the bottom dotted line there is the performance threshold. That is the performance threshold with which, if you fall below that performance threshold, you be penalized some varying amount up to the maximum for that year. So if your 2017 performance falls below the performance threshold line, you will reach some kind of negative indication in 2019. Say your 2018 performance year in 2020, you are subject to up to a potential negative 5%, 2022 and beyond, negative 9%. But once you get above that performance threshold line, you will be eligible for incentive payments up to the maximum for that given year, right? So that ranges from 4% up through 9% as the years go by. And above that performance threshold, there is actually a $500 million pot that's available each one of these first 4 years. Well, actually, it's the first 5 years, but I'm only showing 4 on this chart. It's a year for those exceptional performers. And so you look at, am I doing relative to my peers? Am I meeting the performance threshold? And then I'm incentivized if I'm doing above and beyond what my peers are doing. There's additional bonuses, money available. And I really think there's a real opportunity in these early years. I mean, we've been across the state in South Dakota for a number of years now looking at stations and, doing the work as the Regional Extension Center. And many of you are doing just exceptional work. And I want to make sure that you get into this early because you can really tap into some of that early money, because I believe there were a lot of people taking the lower end options this first year or two. So I think there's some real opportunity up in that blue section there. For 17, the performance threshold, the additional performance threshold is 70. If you scored above a 70 on a 100-point scale, you will fall into that exceptional performance category. You have an automatic 0.5% bump on top of what it is. So therefore, if you score over 70, you'd be at 4.5% improvement. Plus, you'd be eligible for more depending on how far above the line you fell. So first year, now this is 2017 only, because this is the beginning of the program. This is what was considered a transition year. the performance threshold bar is as low as you're ever going to see it. You only have to get 3 points in the first year in order to get a neutral adjustment. So anything above 3 you're going to be at neutral or above. But you don't report anything. If you report anything, there is no sliding scale to the bottom. If you don't report in 2017 and you are eligible, you will get a 4% penalty in 2019 on your Medicaid payments. I had said before that we would take questions at different times, but if something does, I mean, if it rubs you the wrong way or you want to have it clarified, feel free to step in. Whenever I change slides, I'll pause for just a few seconds. So if you want to jump in, then certainly that would be the time, and we'll back up and answer the question. In this transition year, you probably hear this a lot from the pundits and in different circles when you start listening to this. They're really positioning it as the ability to pick your own pace, right, for this first year. You'll probably begin to see this graphic quite a bit in here as well, because really there are 4 different opportunities for you to participate in this first year as a pick your own pace. You're not required to participate. If you don't participate, if you don't do all the things you need to do, or any of the things you need to do, you will be implicitly saying, I will take the penalty in 2019. 4% reduction in your Medicare Part B payments. If you get anything, there's the test method. If you want to just dip your toe into that water, you can report one quality measure, you can report one clinical improvement activity, or you can do a set of the EdCare information, what's used to be meaningful use measures. So you can really, in fact, we're going to talk about a couple of scenarios here where you can just about do nothing and reach that threshold fast. I would absolutely, I mean, I can think of no reason why you would want to take the penalty, because we're going to be able to give you very, very simple things, at least that gets you to 0 adjustment. Right? And there are lots of ways that you can get partial year adjustments and full year adjustments. So if you report on a number of measures more than the minimum, you will be in positive territory, and you will receive somewhere between 0 and 4+ percentage points. If you submit for the full year, you are more likely to get to the maximum. And the reason that is because in one of the categories, quality, that is 80% of the total overall score for year 2017 in the transition year. And the measures have a volume threshold. In practice, you might have trouble meeting in a 90-day period. So you have to get out to a 120, 180-day period before you'd be able to meet the case volume requirements for the quality system. So we definitely recommend not just waiting until the last 90 days of the year and then start collecting and submitting data. Going back to this previous slide, the 4 options, of course, don't participate, do something, test, anything, up to 90 days, or 90 days or longer, or submit for the full year. And that's where you maximize your score. A little bit about quality. 60% of your overall score here, you're going to pick quality measures of about 300 measures. So have a little bit of something for everybody. the section of the pie, or 25% of it, advancing care information. For you who are familiar with meaningful use, that is meaningful use. Different name, same old meaningful use. Although it's been modified a little bit, it's actually quite a bit easier to meet now because it's not all or nothing. You will actually get judged on how well you did those performance measures, not just if you can get to 15. So, final section, and the part we're going to spend the next probably 20 minutes or so talking about, is improvement activities. And that's a brand new category, so that's probably the one you guys are least likely to be familiar with, is those improvement activities, and it makes up 15% of your total score. This is going to shift a little bit over time. One of the things that they did for this transition year, originally in the proposed rule to have the value-based modifier piece put in there, and for the transition year, they took that piece out. They will be reintroducing it. What we've been hearing in 2018, I'm not so sure that it's going to happen in 2018, but that's the word we've been hearing at this point, is value modifier will be back in 2018. And so you look at, then it starts to shift, and by the time you get out there into the 2019 performance year or the 2021 payment year, that kind of tan-ish 30% at the bottom, that is value. So that's value-based modifier. 30% in the upper right quadrant is quality. Advanced care information still remains at 25, and improvement activities remain at 15. So you'll see a shift over time to quality and value. And that was the intent from the program to begin with. And all your advanced payment models, that's the intent of them as well. Performance improvement activities. Again, this is a new category for most of you, although it's probably, and again, we've sort of looked at the environment, and there's going to be, there's a spot in here for everybody. Everybody across South Dakota is doing these kinds of things in different forms already. So it's a matter of picking those kinds of activities and getting credit for them, right? Most participants, and I would say that, well, first of all, these are CMS's slides because we want to make sure that we have accurate information out there. So while these might be applicable in most places, I would say in South Dakota, many of us fall under the groups of 15 or smaller providers or in rural areas. So I would challenge this notion a little bit that most participants will complete up to 4 improvement activities. I believe that most of our practices are going to fall under the second group there, under 15 providers, or in a rural or HIPSA. So that's the vast majority of our places, right? So you could test only 2 improvement activities over that 80-day period and make the full 40 points in that goal. So special rules for those of you that are certified as PCMH, those PCMH certified places get all of the points in this category automatically. It'll be on a go-forward basis as we understand it as well. That's a pretty select group over time, but not a very select group in 2017 because they're really being lenient on this improvement activity category for small and rural providers. So, and you see how that plays out here in a couple of minutes. So, and of course, if you're in one of the advanced payment models, you automatically get full points for that section. So, improvement activities, they fall under 9 different categories, and I won't read these categories to you, you can read them, but we're going to look at several of those categories and the way that you might begin to select which ones are right for you. Is a couple of slides and in the next few minutes. So what you need to know from this, right, is there's something here for everybody, and 90 activities under these 9 subcategories. They're not quite broken down 10 per subcategory, but there's several in each at the very least. So when we're thinking about these subcategories, you know, that's an opportunity for you to say, okay, what are we really good at, or what is our specialty, you know, good at, right? Is it expanding practice access? I mean, do we offer 24/7 vacation, those kinds of things? Are we care coordination for our patients? So, you know, are we doing some population management things? So there's different categories in here, and when we get into sort of the nuts and bolts of this, you'll see some of those things that are probably really familiar looking to you. Right? Normally, this category is built around a 40-point scale, and most places would pick either an activity that's worth 10 points and pick 4 of those, or a high-weighted activity which is worth 20 points, get with 2. That's where this slide, the bullet says no clinician, because any clinician can do 4 medium weight activities and get the maximum 40-point score out of that section. There are some special considerations for these smaller groups, and the special considerations, basically they just double the value of each one of those things. So a medium becomes worth 20 points, and a high becomes worth 40. And if we start looking at activities, you can pick one high-weighted activity and meet the full 40-point consideration for this category. And there are a couple of them in here that you'll see are pretty to achieve. We're going to jump onto the slide presentation now and go out to the live CMS QPP site. But while I want you to maybe jot this down, this address, it's qpp.cms.gov. Measures if you want, /IA if you want, but if you go to qpp.cms.gov, that whole site is doing to this. So you'll get to the measures part pretty easily. I just wanted to show you a little bit about what you're going to see when we get there, so what you can expect, right? So they've done a good job on this website, and it's one of the things that sort of points to their ability to open up a little more than CMS is used to. And, you know, this is a website that's got a lot of educational materials on it. They've tried really hard to not use acronyms where they don't have to. And so it's a really pretty good and easy to navigate site. What we'll see when we get there is you're going to show all of these 92 activities, and filter them by any of those subcategory names, any of those 9 subcategories, or you can do by activities or mediums would want, or there are specific keywords you can search for. There's not so many that I would search for a keyword necessarily. I think you'll be a lot better off go subcategory, picking up category, and then sort of flipping through those. Because there are a few in there that aren't real intuitive, but when you get in there, we'll see, you click on them, it says what the activity ID is, it tells what subcategory it belongs to, and then what's that worth. Remember, a medium is worth 10 points, is worth 20 in normal circumstances. So we're going to jump out to that site. We're going to do time. Everybody should at this point be seeing a website, quality payment program. If you can't, somebody holler. Okay, you can then. There's some pretty basic instructions there, but what we're going to do is sort of jump right into it so you can take a look at them, right? So if we look at these subcategories, and these are the 16 activities right now under population management. This is what you'll see when you first get in there is 2 activities, and then you can go down and look at them, or you can filter by here, I filtered by population management because I know there's a lot of folks that are eligible for many of these things that are in here. And just a few of them that I wanted to point out in here is, this is an interesting one, right? If a rural health clinic, which many of you are going to be attached to rural health clinics, or if you're an IHS provider or an FQHC, if one of those three designations, that is a high-weighted activity, and if you're a small organization, you paid the full 40 points for that category. Definitely worth looking into. There's population impairment in here. The population, I know that Million Hearts is in here somewhere. Hearts program. It's right here. So, training and research that identifies tools that can improve targeted population. That's a medium-weighted activity. If you're in the Million Hearts campaign, that's a medium-weighted activity. I would say just look through here, find the ones. Here's one on diabetes. A lot of people are doing diabetes education programs. That's high-weighted activity. And so there are ways to look at how these activities are picked up. So I'd encourage you to go out, take a look at this site. There's behavior and mental health. And that's one, I'm going to get rid of the population management because a few of these, and one of the reasons I recommend people filter by those subcategory names, because there's some of these that don't seem very intuitive, right? The diabetes screening. If you see that as a number of the 92, you might not immediately put it with behavioral health because the measure is diabetes screening for schizophrenia or bipolar. So, and use an antipsychotic medication. So this is actually a behavioral and mental health issue about diabetes screenings. So I would look at it by subcategory names. If nothing else, it gives a way to break down 92 activities in sort of some logical means. If you really wanted to look at, say, the high activities, you can get down that way and see all activities that are highly weighted. Select, just fold up. I really want to point out too, while we're here, again, is I told you at the beginning of the hour, as TCPI lead for North Dakota and South Dakota. TCR participation, all you have to do is sign up. It's a free program, doesn't cost anything. We'll help you through this transition. It's a weighted activity. First year, if you're in a small place, it's worth to you 40 points. So you get maximum points in this category for joining TCPI. You see this on the side here, and what that does is it lets you, as a provider, select a number of activities, and then you can download it into a spreadsheet format. It downloads as a CSV. Almost everybody, comma separated values. Almost everybody that downloads CSVs opens them with Excel or some other spreadsheet application. So I'm going to jump back into the presentation now, unless somebody wants to look at something specific while we're in here.
For Dan at this time.
Got open already. Load this into our Excel program. So in this particular case, I just wanted to show you what it looks like. I know many of you or somebody within the organization utilizes Excel to begin building out project plans and those kinds of things. So was kind enough to put a CSV downloader right on their site, so you can use the interactive website and then load it into an Excel spreadsheet and have it all there for you. I just wanted to show you the basic format. Again, it shows that activity name, what the description is, what the ID is, you know, subcategory it fits in, and what the weighting is. So when you look at it, you can select easily if these are the number of things, and it doesn't, basically that website is for educational purposes. This is not official section of your measures or anything else. You can go out and take a look at them, say these things might be of interest to us, or I think we're doing something in this area. I'm going to add it to my list, so when I get them down and then take it to different meetings and various places where you might be making decisions about how to do these clinical improvement activities, you can just bring that with you, and it's a nice, tidy package. So we've several times now that there's 40 points eligible in this category, and I think we need to spend a couple of minutes here going through the math again, right? I mean, it's pretty straightforward, but if it's the first couple of times you've been exposed to it, it's a lot of different formulas that seems to be a little bit of confusion about, right? So I think the easiest way to think about it is this category has a total of 40 points in it. It's 15% of the 100 points it takes to score a perfect score, if you will. So you get all 40 points in this category, you then get 15 points to get up towards that 100, or the number you're really shooting for this year is 70 and above. Right? So activity weights, medium weighted activities are 10 points, highs are 20, unless you're in those alternative pieces where you're in small, rural, and this is many of us, you know, underserved practices, or if you happen to be a non-patient facing clinician, and that's, I'm not even going to say anesthetist, sorry. You know, or if you're working in an OR and you don't interact daily with the patients, if you don't have 100 Part B encounters, then you are a non-patient facing provider. So any of those, the points basically for this first year double. And you are in some of these specific types of things, like PCMH, then you get full credit for that, and you get 15 automatically. So the way it's figured out in there, you know, again, it's pretty straightforward here. Your number of points, in this case, if you joined TPI, it would be 40 divided by 40 times 100. Of course, you got 1 times 100, and you get 100% of the points in the category. There are some tables and stuff that you can follow through, but you know, you're going to get, and it's broken down into deciles, I believe. So if you scored a 96, you would still get the full 15 points in that category. So when we now look at how do I get above 70, for example, right? This purple box in here, the clinical and practice improvement activities that we've been talking about, makes up 15% of the 100 total. So you've got co-quality measures on the far left-hand side of the screen. That's worth 60%. This year for value-based modifier or cost category, 15% for CPIA and 25% for clinical advancing care information. 15% category that we've been talking about, that's the maximum points you can get. So even if you did 20 activities, you're still only going to get 15 points in that category, or 15% of that 100% total. So pick and choose ones that you can do and will work for you over time. Try to don't try to burn the house down in category. Pick the ones that'll work and begin to make movement towards them. That's a recommendation. And then you're going to see some shifting in this scoring over time. Probably a special consideration that we should talk about a little bit is this A category, that 25% category on the far right. So if we think about that as meaningful use, and if you don't make that and you have exemptions or you have exceptions to that, you can request an exclusion from that category. They will redistribute those points to their categories. In fact, if you can get an exclusion waiver, that would have 70% quality performance score and 30% PIA activities. So most people are going to qualify for that exemption because some very specific rules about that exemption. So I don't believe most people are going to be able to qualify for that. This way to see that chart that we had up before about the 3 points and those kinds of things. So if you do nothing this year, you earn 0 points, you get the net payment adjustment of 4%. If points, which means you did one quality improvement activity or one practice improvement activity, the things that we've just been talking about, or if you do the 4 base requirements of meaningful use, you get a minimum of 3 points and have no payment adjustment. All area between 4 and 9 points, that variable positive adjustment area based on how many of those points you scored. How many out of my 60 possible in quality improvement did you get? How many of my 40 possible in clinical improvement activities? How many in my meaningful use category? Of 70, you not only get the full positive adjustment, but get to start tapping into those bonus dollars. And again, is where I think there's probably some real potential for people who are ready and want to go aggressively at this. Because my guess is that there will be a lot of people taking the 3 points and just checking it out for this year. And you'll be able to get a quick jump on those folks. So it's a way to tap into some money early and do with it what you will. Open this up again this year. You can do nothing, take a penalty, something, and it's just about literally one thing. You can do some partial year, so that's up to 90 days. And again, if you're going to get up into those payment adjustments, I would want to see you start early and getting 90 days, 120 days, 180 days, because the more caseload you have, or the more case volume you have, the better off you are going to be from a scoring criteria. If you don't meet the minimum in the quality areas and you don't meet the minimum case volume, which on almost all of them is 20, with the exception of admissions, and that's only in like it's over 15, and there's some other special cases. Most of them are case volumes of 20. If you get to that 20, you're going to get 3 points for that category, and that's all you can get. Once over the case volume threshold, then you begin to earn positive points, more points based on your performance. So it doesn't matter if you're knocking it out of the park on 18 cases. You know, if you get to 20 cases and you're knocking it out of the park, then you get to start seeing some real movement on those point scales. So I'm going to take questions. We've done our hour, so our CME credit is safe. You've had our contact time, and we can take questions now till the top of the hour or whatever you guys want to do.
Dan, any questions for Dan? The phone lines are open. Dan, one thing that did pop up, we might have a person participated strictly by the computer and not vocally ask a question. They asked, is there any way to access and print your slides? You have sent them the last presentation you sent me a copy, so would you be willing to do that again this time?
Absolutely, yeah. If you just want a copy, you can email me directly, although Mark will also have access to the copies. They will be up however Mark wants to present them. I'm pretty sure they're going to be up on their site fairly soon.
Yes. So for anybody that did not participate in the previous session or one of our other sessions, we do record each session. It generally takes a couple days because we have to do a little editing, but we put the recorded session up on the SDSMA website, and we also put a copy of the slides themselves. If you do access those two ways, gave his contact information. You're also welcome to contact me at the Medical Association by phone, 605-336-165, or email that's meast@dsma.org. So hopefully that will take care of that. Any other questions for Dan at this time? One question for you, and that's similar to what we asked last time we got together, and that is, to hear this for the first time can be a bit overwhelming. So you recommend some first steps for a provider or a provider group and to assess basically where they're at, their preparation, or even to get a sense of how they're coming right out of the gate at the start point?
I think there are a couple of easy wins early for you. One, go to the qpp.cms.gov website. There's a lot of good information up there. There's a lot of presentations up there. There's a couple of recorded presentations. Mark's group, have these recorded presentations. Then you want to get your feet under you a little bit, right? You know how to ask the right questions. Then you either contact me or you contact Mark, and he'll get you in touch with me. You can contact the QIO, so in South Dakota, that's SDFMC. They're so involved in this activity through their scopes of work with CMS. So directly call the foundation, and they can help you with it. You can join TCPI, which is not only our organization, but there are 28 other. There are 29 total. I do think there are advantages, obviously, with CompTN because, we're local presence. We've been working in South Dakota for the last 6 years, well, longer than that, but on regional extension center work, and we've been working directly with many of your practices for the past 6 years. We've been in most all of your practices, from the smallest up to the largest. You can visit with us about it. But there are others out there. There are other options available to you. So, and we can point you to those if you want to know them.
I did find some other questions for you in the chat window here. It says, so this will probably take us back a few slides. It's a $30,000 per provider or per group.
That's a great question, actually. And it will take us back a few slides, but there are two. The methods are you can individual provider, or if you have 2 or more providers, then you can move as a group. And so if you're looking at, if you do report as a group, the $30,000 is for the group. It is not. So if you have 2 providers, it's not $30,000 each provider. It's $30,000 for the 2 of you. The thing that kind of comes into play with is when you are, if you have members of your group, and so it's broken down by, if you're doing individually, it's by NPI, and you do it as a group, you're going to do the 10. Right, so you do the tax ID number, and then everybody moves as a group if you've selected to do it as a group. So across all the categories, all the scoring pieces, everything moves as a group. If your group has non-patient facing providers, If you're over 75% of your NPIs within the tax ID number are non-patient facing, the whole group becomes non-patient facing.
Okay, I have a couple more questions for you. It says, can I still perform a score of 70 if I just report for 80 days in 2017, or does it take a full year to reach exceptional performance? Or measures you report on, does that add to the score, or can you achieve this with only 6 quality measures reported?
You leave it with only 6 measures reported. You do get some bonus points for additional measures that are performed. You technically max out in a 90-day period, but be pretty much based on what your case volume is. You have to be doing enough of each quality metric to really maximize the points within that 90-day period. That suggests going a longer period. And the other thing I think that it really does for you, right, is if you start, say, in February or March, you start the clock running, you get through those first 90 days, well, the next 190 are pretty easy. So if you don't get through that first 90 days, say something happens or whatever, then you can go on to another 90-day period. Even if you plan on only doing 90 days within the year, please don't let it be the last 90 days.
That's a very good point. A couple more questions for you, Dan. It says, I am in a multi-specialty clinic with greater than 15 providers, but less than 15 primary care providers. So how many improvement activities do I need?
So multiple layers to that question. I'll try to answer them best I can. If you're in a group of larger than 15, there are some special rules that apply to you that we didn't spend much time talking about tonight. We'll actually talk about them in a later session, but just you are eligible then for a couple of different things too. There's 30-day readmits that they're going to start looking at. There's being able to report your measures by through the CMS website. Not open for smaller groups. Let's see, what else? The question was about
how many improvement activities do I need?
Yeah. No, if you choose to go as a group as opposed to, let's say you have 20 individual providers, you can go provider by provider. If you choose to do it as a group, you all move at once, and then you only really have to do the 6 measures across all the providers. So, there are benefits to going each way, and I think the only way we can really understand the benefits or the merits, there's a place called SA Ignite that has a return on investment calculator, and I don't know what it is right offhand, but it's SA Ignite. It's the ROI calculator, and you can kind of look at, does it make sense if I do individual providers or if I do groups.
Coming up on the hour here, but I got one more question I want to put at you that came in from a viewer. It says, how does one attest to these improvement activities?
So the site is not up and available at this point, but they are attestation type things. Have I done this activity for this period? Yes or no? When the attestation portal becomes available, just like if you're familiar with meaningful use, one of the meaningful use measures was, did you perform a risk assessment, security risk assessment, as a yes-no question. And these activities for this transition year, and I believe at least 2018, I don't know beyond that because I think they're going to start, the system will just be maturing. But initially, you will just go into the portal and say, yes, I did this activity for that 90-day period. And it does have to be a continuous 90-day period.
Dan, do you want to go ahead and put up your contact slide, the last one again? to catch that, they can write that down so they can follow up with you, and I'll kind of a few closing words here, Dan, but before I do, anything else that you would like to share this evening?
No, absolutely. Again, you guys have been great. I love to see the questions come in. If there's one I didn't answer to your satisfaction, stay on me. I just asked a question the other day. One of the things that we're good at, we have kind of a direct line into the Paul McGanns and those folks over at CMS that are running this program, especially through Compass, because we're second largest in the country. So they really look to us to help them with some things and understanding rural places a lot. So, we ask questions and get good answers for you. If I don't know the answer, and I'll be the first one to admit, I don't know them all, but we get them right from CMS for you.
And on that note, I do want to say Dan has been an excellent resource. So if anyone does have a question that for whatever reason they weren't able to or were looking to ask this evening, please don't hesitate to follow up with either Dan or myself. In closing, I want to thank Dan for taking his time to be with us. I mentioned this is our second program of 4, so the next program in this series is scheduled for Thursday, December 22nd, and it will be at 7 p.m. And the topic of that presentation is going to be MACRA's quality performance scoring. For those who are interested in Category 1 CME credits, they are being made available through Avera Health. So when you exit tonight, you should be redirected to their website where you can register and apply for that credit. If you do have any complications with that, please don't hesitate to contact me, the Medical Association, again, 605-366-965. I'm going to put one last request. Any questions for Dan before we close for the evening? Okay, so hearing none, as mentioned earlier, make the recording available. It will probably be made available on the SDSMA's website sometime later next week, and also have a copy of the slides posted online as well. In the meantime, you're certainly welcome to contact Dan directly for a copy of those slides. And with that, I thank everyone for joining and wish you a good evening. Thanks, Dan.